When they announce it. Anyways, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Lunch and Learn on this year's Button Up campaign. Nice to see some of your guys' faces. Before we get started, I just want to go over, or I'll introduce myself first. So anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Becca Custer. I am the AmeriCorps member and Community Energy Coordinator with VECAN. For folks who don't know, but I assume most people on this call know that VECAN is the Vermont Energy and Climate Action Network. We support, start, and strengthen energy committees across the state. And one of our partners is Efficiency Vermont. So very excited to be joined by Becca White from Efficiency Vermont, who's really going to lead today's conversation on this year's Button Up campaign. But before we kind of get into it, I was just going to go over a really quick agenda. So first, I'm just going to frame it up really high level how Button Up fits into our state energy emission reduction requirements, and then hand it off to Becca to really give a presentation about what you all can expect from this year's Button Up campaign. And then opening it up at the very end for the next, for the last 30 or 20 minutes for Q&A. So feel free to put your questions in the chat as they come up. At the end of Becca's presentation, I'll ask folks to, I'll select folks who ask questions in the chat and ask you guys to ask the questions live if you'd like. So there's a lot of ask. And yeah, so then we'll end it there. I guess I'll share my screen. Yes, this is right. Okay. Oh, that might be the wrong screen. That's definitely the wrong screen. It says Zoom.
I'm seeing your slides, Becca. So
oh, you are?
You're okay. Yeah, or I was.
So I wasn't seeing the slides. That's unhelpful because I can't see my own slides. Okay, that's really interesting. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to figure this out. But so you can see the slides, but I'll try one more thing.
I wonder, so when you click screen share, rather than selecting just the slides window, maybe you could try your whole screen, and maybe that will allow the Zoom gods to let you see everything.
Oh, look at that. Did Becca did you just do it, Becca?
Yep,
okay.
I just put it up. Happy to run the show for a bit.
All right, sounds good. Sorry about that.
No worries.
All right, let's see if it will let me get out of here. I never have problems with that, but okay. Anyways, yeah, so I think we can go to the next slide. But again, thank you for joining us for this webinar about Button Up. Just wanting to ground with the Global Warming Solutions Act and how Button Up fits into our requirements. So obviously, folks probably know that we enacted the Global Warming Solutions Act last year, which really turns our state kind of goals into requirements, and establishes a climate council to develop a plan to meet those mandates, which is currently underway and will be delivered this December as an initial plan. And the requirements say that we need to reduce our emissions by 26% below 2005 levels by 2025, and then ramping all the way up to 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. So super ambitious goals, and we're really going to need to significantly reduce our emissions in the thermal and transportation sectors, which make up the largest share of our emissions. And you can see here, obviously, in this EIN graphic, that the orange right here is the thermal sector, which makes up about 34% of our state emissions. And in the next slide, you'll see EIN's amazing graphics. In the left-hand side, you can see that it says there's about 54% of these thermal emissions come from the residential sector, so really the in-home energy use. And that's really going to be a level that we're going to need to significantly reduce emissions. And you can see in the second graphic on the right-hand side, the very right, weatherization. Yes, EIN did a recent pathways analysis in their most recent report for Vermont that showed kind of specific measures that we're going to need to take in order to meet the goals of the Global Warming Solutions Act and reduce our thermal emissions. And they said weatherization was one of the key strategies, and we're going to need to significantly ramp up our weatherization from somewhere about 27,000 homes that we weatherized in 2018, scaling that up to about 150,000 homes in 2030, which is really significant. This is not necessarily a prescriptive number, exactly what we're going to need to do, but just showing that we're going to need to ramp up significantly. And that's where campaigns like Button Up fit in, because weatherization is going to be continuing to play a very key role. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying, very key role. And we're going to significantly scale up weatherization. And that's where Button Up comes in, because it's not only a great program that educates folks about the benefits and importance of weatherization, but also gives folks the tools to weatherize their own homes. So I'm really excited to hear from Becca about this year's campaign and what you all can expect. So I guess I'll hand it off to you, Becca.
Awesome. Thank you, Becca. You've got, as folks may have noticed, you've got Becca squared today coming at you for Button Up because we love our alliteration. And that was fabulous framing, Becca, because what we're trying to do with the Button Up Vermont campaign is take all of this relatively overwhelming and scary climate change concern that we have in our state and these big goals around weatherization and help our energy committees like you, help our residents, in addition to that, be able to see a campaign that gives them educational opportunities to weatherize their own homes and businesses. So trying to take all of the info that we've gotten from Becca around our climate goals and what we need to do and make it so that it's translatable and easy to understand for the average Vermonter. Because the truth is, we can have great goals like this, but it's not unless we all get on board and play our part that we're going to be able to meet them. So really great framing to kick us off. So if you are formerly Button Up Vermont participants, you probably recognize my face. This is my third year spearheading the campaign from the Efficiency Vermont side. I'm a community engagement manager with Efficiency Vermont, and it's my job to bring together all the partners and stakeholders to make Button Up Vermont a success. So last year, we had very similar goals to what we're hoping to do this year. And in part, you can see that first goal is dictated largely because of how we are able to show up in the world right now. Button Up Vermont, if you participated back in either 2017, 2018, 2019, the campaign largely was an in-person events-driven campaign, and we had to pivot like the rest of the world in 2020 to an exclusively virtual way of showing up in our communities. So this year, while I was hoping we could not have that same all virtual setup, it's looking more like we will have to rely on those options again with COVID-19. So our goal first and foremost is to make sure that we have physically distant fun activities that can also be done virtually. We of course want to focus on weatherization at a comprehensive level, and we want to elevate those do-it-yourself projects because the way that folks weatherize, yes, we've got those goals around home weatherization at a comprehensive level. There's still Vermonters out there who are going to need to rely on DIY options, either as a first step or that's what's going to work for them this year. The last goal is to support low-income weatherization with community action. So something I've heard quite a bit about from our energy committees like you is that you want to be able to support the most vulnerable folks in your community. So we certainly have some tools to do that this year. And while we're not bringing back the Button Up Vermont Fund, if you remember from last year, where we raised over $50,000 to support our weatherization agencies, we still have some tools in our toolbox to make the campaign accessible and supportive of low-income weatherization. Okay, so there's our goals. Always good to start there. And we've got some fun things that you can expect for 2021. As you can see on the right side there, we've got just a screenshot of some of the different videos that we gave you last year. A lovely Button Up Vermont preview. I've got the same background because I'm ready for winter. And the first thing you can expect is the Weatherization Wednesday series. So thank you to all of the participating partners who I'll talk about at the end of the presentation, and you as energy committees who made the Weatherization Wednesday series a success. An important thing to know about this year, compared to last year, the campaign was 3 months long last year. So we actually had just about 12 different Weatherization Wednesdays. This year, we're going to do it all in 1 month in October. So while we're still doing the Weatherization Wednesdays, there's 4 for you to focus on. And I can talk about those topics if folks want to know about those today. But I'm, drum roll, please. They're going to be topics that we heard from you, both in surveys and in your communication to me about what you wanted to hear to spread the word in your community about weatherization. The next thing to expect are regional events. Those are currently in the works. And I was hoping that we could have up to 5 regional events throughout the state. We're trying to figure out the balance between outside events, masked, socially distant, and virtual backup options. So stay tuned for that. If you would like to host a regional event, you've got the perfect park for an October regional event about weatherization to bring in some crowds. Let me know. We also have our regional planning commissions and our weatherization agencies working together on this. So that's where that income eligible weatherization comes into play, as we're working directly with our community action agencies who provide income eligible weatherization this year to put on these regional events. And last but certainly not least, we certainly heard from you as energy committees and the general public too, that the most valuable thing for you is just simple copy and pastable resources, collateral, advertisement that goes right to your community. So if you sign up to be a Button Up Vermont community this year, we're going to do that again, where we'll have advertisements available to you, and I'll put in the chat the sign up to be a participating community. There'll be a question about what types of advertising would be best for your community. I know we've got some folks who the local paper is number one, but maybe that's Front Porch Forum or an email list if you're in the Upper Valley, or if you're like me and it's Facebook. So there'll be lots of resources you can share. We're hoping to build that social media toolkit for you again, so that you can get information that's easy and fun to share out with your community to get them jazzed about weatherizing. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the incentives, because weatherization has some incentives that go along with it this year. The first one is that Do It Yourself Rebate, where if you complete up to 3 eligible projects that are DIY, you can get a $100 rebate. If you are familiar with the Button Up checklist from previous years, the Button Up checklist is exactly the projects that are eligible for the DIY incentive of $100. So we'll be updating those again, and I've got an image on the next slide to show you of our updated website. But in addition to the updated website, we've updated that checklist and a couple of other pieces. So look out for more on that, and folks can take advantage of that DIY rebate if they complete 3 eligible projects. The other thing to note is that there are some and look at that. Becca is on it. She just put in the chat the home performance with Energy Star page, which when I say comprehensive weatherization, a project that is air sealing, insulation, doing a whole home project, I'm thinking home performance with Energy Star. So thank you, Becca, for putting that link in there, because if you're wondering about the incentives and you want information, that's the link to go to on the Efficiency Vermont page. And just to tell you out loud, the current incentives, Vermonters can receive up to 50% of a project's cost back, up to $1,000. And if your annual household income falls at or below some income eligibility requirements, which you can find out, it's county specific. You can find that on the website. You could be eligible for up to 50% of the project costs and up to $3,000. So some good incentives out there to motivate and share with your community. Next slide. This is really exciting to me. So we have updated, or in the process of updating, the Button Up website. So since we're virtual, we're all online for a lot of our resources, it was important that we made sure the website was user-friendly and that folks who were thinking about weatherization had a place to go. So in 2020, our theme was Neighbors Helping Neighbors. And this year, our theme is Outsmarting Winter. So that's a little bit why I'm in the snow for my background, but I know we may not want to be thinking about winter right now, but we can stay warm and cozy if we weatherize and we outsmart winter, which I think every Vermonter could get behind. So that's our theme. And what I love about the new website that it's not up yet, but you'll see the old website if you go there now, but you will see it starting soon. Some of the changes that are made are to give Vermonters a better understanding of when you would weatherize and why, and then the value of weatherization. So really explain that value proposition, because for most of us who have been in the energy space for a while, we might think, wow, weatherization is an obvious choice. But for someone who isn't familiar with the value, we really want to spell out why weatherizing would have a benefit for them, both saving money, comfort, and energy reduction. So lots of good reasons there. Again, the campaign is 1 month long in October. So we did hear loud and clear from you that the 3-month commitment last year was a lot, especially with other projects going on and in the midst of a pandemic. So doing it as a quick but jam-packed 1 month hopefully will help answer some of those points that were raised. And again, some of the things that we'll be focusing on are those Weatherization Wednesdays, the regional presentations, the updated website, and then I actually haven't mentioned the virtual home energy visits, which are available statewide currently. We have the free virtual home energy visits available for any Vermonter at this point. But during Button Up, I'll be providing resources for you to help spread the word about those free virtual home energy visits during the campaign. That would be a great tool for someone who isn't quite sure where to start with weatherization and has specific questions about their home and would like to talk to someone, kind of the pre-contractor, pre-audit conversation to get the excitement built about weatherization. And then something that's new this year that I especially want to call out is that we are working not only to talk about weatherization, but the combo of weatherization, having a tight home, having an insulated home, having that combined with heat pump technology. So if you think that the combo of those two things, weatherization heat pumps would be exciting to your community, if that's like the next step for folks or what would even drive them to consider weatherization, this year is the perfect year to sign up to be a Button Up community. We've got a special Weatherization Wednesday that's being planned, so October 13th, mark your calendar. And then we'll also be providing that resource kit for you that will include information about heat pumps. So exciting stuff, because you can weatherize your home and potentially get off fossil fuels with a heat pump. So really hits not only that goal of weatherization that we had Becca outline for us at the beginning, but also some of that fossil fuel reduction as well. So double goal, one campaign, doing it all. So that's really what I wanted to talk to us about today. And the next steps would be, you should sign up to be a Button Up Vermont community. The ask this year is to fill out a Google form so I can keep track of everyone and see what you're interested in doing and what would be helpful for you to talk to your community, what resources would be helpful to talk to your community with. And I bet that's, look at that. Dream team, Becca has put in the chat that Google form. Feel free to click it now and open it on the side to fill out during or after the presentation. I'm hoping to get those all in by mid-September so I can get a good head count. And then please like and follow the social media campaign, the social media platforms for Button Up. We have a Facebook. We do have a Twitter, but really Facebook would be the place to go. We also have a YouTube channel, which has some great videos. And then please connect with your regional planning commission, who all the regional planning commissions are participating again this year. If you'd like to host a regional event, I know I've got a few folks already in the audience who I've reached out to about that. So we'll keep the ball rolling there. And then last, do you have a creative idea that we're missing? this campaign only exists because we have such dedicated volunteers like yourselves. So if you've got something that you've wanted to try, or a creative idea that has been floating around the community, please let me know, because I'd love to see how we can incorporate that and make the campaign even better. So as I wrap up the presentation, I want to note the folks who are partners, because it's not just me, it's not just Efficiency Vermont that works on this campaign. It's partner driven, it's grassroots. We're fortunate to have all of our utility partners participate and be partners, as you can see. So every part of the state is represented here. Then we've got a whole slew of great nonprofits and organizations. And of course, we've got our fabulous VNRC and VECAN represented on the left and the right. Thank you for hosting us today. One point I want to call out that has certainly come up in previous years is window dressers. So if you're familiar with window dressers, or you're a window dressers community, this is another great reason to participate in Button Up. We work closely with window dressers, and I am excited that we're seeing some community builds being able to happen in Vermont this year after having to take a pause last year. If you are a window dressers community and you're doing a build, whether that be in October or subsequent months, please sign up to be a Button Up community, and I am happy to help give you resources to give information to window dressers customers that you're providing inserts to on the next steps to weatherization, or how they might take a do-it-yourself project and include window inserts into that, so they're eligible for the rebate. So this is a really great year to combine those two things together. And if you're concerned because you're putting a lot of volunteer time into the window dressers campaign and you're not sure if you can focus on Button Up as well, let me know. I'd love to find a way that we can have you participate to meet the goals of Button Up and be able to meet the demands of doing a larger window dressers campaign with volunteers. So please don't count yourself out if you're participating. I think I used the peanut butter and jelly reference earlier for heat pumps in weatherization. Well, maybe I'll do milk and cookies with Button Up and window dressers. So sorry for the terrible jokes, everyone. Great. And I see there's a question in the chat. Thanks, Phil. I'll follow up on that as I wrap up. And again, here's some more of our partners. If you see some familiar names, definitely great participants in previous years and folks who we will be continuing to work with for 2021. And then I just wanted to highlight our great community action agencies, our weatherization income eligible services providers. All 5 statewide are participating, and hopefully we'll get them to be active in our regional events as well. And then last but certainly not least, we're continuing the partnership with our regional planning commissions this year. Again, every regional planning commission has been able to participate in some way. So you should see your local logo on here, and they're great to work with to help talk about weatherization and see how it fits into your committee's goals at large. Great. So thanks everybody for paying attention and listening to me talk about Button Up. And we can dive into some questions now. You're welcome to, as Becca said, you can put those in the chat like Phil March just did. You could also raise your hand and we're happy to unmute you, put you live on the screen. Yeah, so I'll stop sharing now.
Yeah, so if Phil, you want to ask your question right now, you can turn on your microphone and ask it live. Otherwise, I can read it off, but you're there.
Yeah, my question was, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My question was if the home performance with Energy Star requirements were the same this year as last year. In other words, is it still a 10% reduction in the blower door test results as a minimum? Thank you.
Great question, Phil. From my understanding, the requirements are the same from 2020 to 21 around home performance with Energy Star. But so at that link, you should see under eligibility, there should be some more details there, but I believe they are the same.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
We have another question from Elizabeth Ferry.
Great. Okay, Elizabeth is asking who will be evaluating the virtual home energy visits. Can you walk through the process more in detail? Great question. So in the past, we've had the home energy visits provided by contractors in previous years. And starting in 2019, Efficiency Vermont actually started doing, rather than the home energy visits of previous years, we started doing them slightly differently, where it's an energy consultant from Efficiency Vermont who is providing that service. So not a contractor, just to set that straight. And it's not an audit, so you're not going to get that blower door test. But you will be getting some high level, here's some opportunities you have for energy savings. You can ask specific questions. And again, it's an Efficiency Vermont staffer. So I really find value for the virtual home energy visits with them being an unbiased third-party person. The important thing to note compared to previous years, since they are virtual, it's a great thing to have a smartphone or a laptop to be able to video with the energy consultant. But if that's not an option, or you don't have the bandwidth for your internet to be able to do that, customers can certainly do a phone call, for example, or call customer support and have an exchange of information. So the process is simple, where folks can sign up to schedule a virtual home energy visit using a program called TimeTap, which is what we used in 2020. You can pick your, if you want a virtual smartphone, laptop, video consultation, or if you want just a phone call. And once you pick between those two, you then get to decide the date that works best for you and is available for an energy consultant. Then once you pick the date and time that fits with your schedule, there's a couple questions to help set the stage, including, what are the problem areas that you're hoping to address in your home, whether that be, drafty windows and doors, or an uncomfortable room, cold temperatures, icicles, things like that. And then once you've got that all filled out, and someone has completed the virtual home energy visit scheduling app, then you've got your visit. And it's really the time to ask your questions and potentially with your smartphone, walk around your home or other location and talk to the energy consultant about what you're hoping to accomplish when it comes to energy savings, weatherization, new appliances. Really can cover the gamut of stuff. So great question. Then I see Fran. Oh, and Fran, you're on video. I don't know if you want to ask the question out loud.
Sure, I'll ask it out loud. We've been hearing a lot this year about how busy general contractors are, building, renovating, and so on. And so I'm wondering what the availability is going to be for weatherization contractors this year. It's been a problem in the past, as you know, you and I have discussed this a lot, because we had only two contractors the last time we did this, and one of them just gave up halfway through and left us in the lurch. So we do not want that to happen again. So what's going to happen this year?
Wonderful question. And I'll put it in, I kind of have two answers to the question. The first is that, yes, there is an issue with contractors in our state. In certain parts of our state, it's a long wait to get a contractor, or you might find that you're having difficulty with someone being responsive. So for me, when I think about the Button Up Vermont campaign, well, we're not working on workforce development necessarily during this campaign. There's certainly a value to participating in the campaign, even if you're noticing that there's a shortage of contractors in your community. And that's because we want to get folks interested in weatherization before it's an issue, before they're coming to the place where they can't afford to heat or cool their home. So if there's someone who hasn't thought about weatherization yet, getting them that information so that they can start the process really early, where they have ample time to get a contractor on deck. I think that's the value of the campaign. The second answer to your question around, is there something to do with workforce development? How do we get more contractors available? That's a sticky one. And there are organizations both at the state level, Efficiency Vermont, our utility partners, everyone is trying to crack the nut on workforce development and getting more contractors in the queue. So it's not something that we're going to be able to fully address this year, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be promoting weatherization. The other note I'll put out there is that income eligible weatherization, folks who are getting the free weatherization services, I have heard that there is availability statewide. So even if it's someone who that's a great thing to think about now. If there's availability in that realm, let's try to get people in the queue, in the line to get free weatherization services. And then one other thing I do want to mention, that I had a fabulous conversation with another energy committee member over email, which is you could certainly use Button Up as an opportunity to engage younger Vermonters. And it might feel like a long-term project, but engaging younger Vermonters, whether those be students or young adults, in Button Up, I think is a great way to show the value of weatherization and potentially get some folks who might consider that as a career path in the future. So if you're thinking, Weybridge is like, that's the thing we want to focus on this year, I'm happy to try to work to get some materials to talk about the value of working in weatherization or working in the contracting field. But we will be continuing to focus on what the value of weatherization is in general in doing a project. So great question. And I apologize. I think I have a neighbor doing some contracting work themselves out there. So if you hear any noise, apologies.
We had another follow-up question from Bob, and I wonder if we want to go to that one and then go back to Anne's question. But I don't know if that answered your question, Bob, about the kind of contractors or not, but just what's going on.
Yeah, basically it did.
Okay, great.
It's definitely an issue, and I'm glad that we're working on it, because 2030 is coming really quickly. And last year's experience with trying to get contractors was really frustrating. And I know people are already trying to line things up with contractors for various projects this fall, and it's really hard.
It's hard. And I will note, last year, one of the tactics we took was to focus a bit more on the do-it-yourself angle as well. So that
was a great idea.
Yeah. So it's smaller, and it might be just enough to help someone save some energy and some energy costs. So if that's another angle where it's really difficult in your community and that's a concern for you, we could certainly talk about focusing on the DIY option. One thing I wanted to call out, and there, Bob, I always love your background. I feel like I'm on a podcast. Maybe this is a great time to talk about the other, far cooler event happening later today that VECAN is hosting, because you might want to bring this point up to a certain senator. I don't know if this is the right time to make that event pitch, but
sure, we can. Ian, do you want to just talk a little bit about the event that's happening at 2:00 today?
Sure. So it's always tough to break into the dream team of Becca Squared. So I appreciate the invite, but y'all are lucky to have them. I'll let you decide, which one's Awesome Becca 1 and which one's Awesome Becca 2, because they're both great. But in terms of the event coming up later today, as folks may have seen, Senator Sanders is going to be hosting a climate-themed town meeting with us in conversation with some Energy Committee leaders who are really focused on, a couple of things, both what is in some of the federal legislation working its way through Congress now on climate, but also for a chance for people to air their thoughts and concerns about what it's actually like to implement energy projects on the ground. And so I think the kind of conversation we're having now around, contractor availability and whatnot are really important. I will say we've got a lot of questions there, so I can make no guarantees that any specific question will actually get answered. But I will be compiling all the questions that we get and sending them on to Bernie's team, which I'm sure they will use to inform what they are pushing for in federal legislation and what they know to push for based on people's on the ground experience. So I would love it if folks here, would like to join that event. I will post in just, unless Becca already did. Becca already did. See what I mean about awesome Becca's, folks? So that link in the chat there is a link to register for that Bernie event again today at 2 if you haven't already. And I think more broadly, it speaks to, and something that we're always trying to think about, the ways in which policy at both the federal and state level really can be a key tool in allowing and enabling the important work that you guys do at the local level. It's because of, funding and policies from, the state, for instance, that a few years ago got some enhanced incentives for weatherization that really bumped things up. And so there is a direct line between support from government, whether that's federal or state, and options and resources to funnel people toward climate solutions. So we've got a historic moment potentially now, emphasis on potentially, with the climate bills going through Congress. And it's a great time to be in touch with our congressional delegation to let them know about your concerns and what sort of things you would like to see included in a bill like that. So hope to see you guys at 2 and hope you all can continue to engage with congressional delegation at this key time as well.
I assume that's going to be recorded.
It is.
It will indeed, Bob.
Thanks.
And if you can't make it to the actual event, you should still register anyways, because you'll get the email with the follow-up materials, including the recording. So yeah.
And I see that we had a question from Ann Lawless. Awesome. And I'm seeing your question is, will we be promoting the Outsmarting Winter through our regional planning commissions? And you note that NVDA has a great monthly newsletter. I completely agree. I love our regional planning commissions and the outreach that they do. Many of them have consistent newsletters that you throughout the state might be a part of. I completely expect us to be sharing that information with our RPCs, and some of those themes around Outsmarting Winter will certainly be a part of it. If you know that there's a regional planning commission newsletter deadline, like they need to get their stuff in for their October newsletter on September 7th, please let me know. Or reach out and I can send you information to share in one of those newsletters. Because while trying to be as across the state as possible, I'm not on every single newsletter that goes out. So if you know that there's one coming up and that would be helpful for sharing out button up information, let me know. I'm also going to be doing my weekly, if you were a part of it last year, you know what I'm talking about, my weekly Friday email where I give you some information about what's upcoming for the Button Up Week. Last year I had some social media posts with images. We talked about the next Weatherization Wednesday and gave you links to be able to share that. So I will be doing that again. And if you sign up to be a Button Up Vermont participating community, I will add you and the folks that you'd like to that email list to make sure you're getting all the up-to-date info. So certainly not the last time you'll hear about this if you'd like to participate. And then, oh, great. And let's see, do we have any other?
There was another question about RPCs from Robert talking about the kind of events or initiatives being discussed. I don't know if you see that one. I can read it out.
Yeah, go ahead and read that one out. Just scrolling.
Can you give us an idea of some of the RPC initiatives being discussed? Are they doing independent events or working primarily through energy committees? And is there funding to RPCs for this?
Great question, Robert. Thank you. So we've got a few regional planning commissions that are on board to be a part of some events. My initial thought was taking some lessons learned from 2020. Last year, we had each of the individual regional planning commissions host a Step Up to Button Up presentation. That was a virtual webinar. And those went well. But some of the feedback I got was, 11 presentations is a lot of presentations. So we tried to focus this year, and at the time hoping that they would be in person, instead doing regional events based on the territory of our weatherization agencies. So that would be, if you're, Central Vermont, that's where does Capstone fit, SEVCA, Brock, NITO, CVOEO, like where are those agencies, and try to do a regional event bringing together the different RPCs within those weatherization agencies territories. So we've got, I know one that's cooking in Randolph that is going to be, I think we tentatively said October 16th. So you'll see more about that with their energy committee working to promote an in-person outdoor event that has like DIY stuff, lots of good things in the mix with the RPC supporting that. If you are thinking about if you're a community and you say, hey, we would be happy to help coordinate a regional event in our town, that's a great thing to do. And you can reach out to me and I can connect you with your regional planning commission, or you can reach out to them directly, depending on how your relationship is with them. And then if you are attending an event, like let's say the regional event doesn't spark any joy for you, you're like, we need something that happens in our town or closer to our community. We aren't going to be doing any hosted presentations for Button Up this year outside of the regional events. But let's say you're going to a farmer's market, or there's a Halloween event or something, and you're attending it already as an energy committee, and you'd like Button Up materials, I can certainly provide those to you, and we can add that to the events calendar. But again, we're not going to do those individual workshops in each town or in each RPC. We're going to try to have the hosted events be on a regional level. But the last question you had, is there funding for RPCs for this? There is not funding from the Button Up campaign for the regional planning commissions to put on these events. However, there are those resources. There's some of my staff time. And if that's a barrier to an RPC putting on an event, happy to talk with that RPC and see if there's some support that we can offer, because we certainly don't want that to be the big barrier.
There's another question from Elizabeth. Says, can you help me understand the role of town energy committees in our regional planning commission? If our regional planning commission is promoting Button Up, would our effort be redundant?
Good question, Elizabeth. No, I don't think it would be redundant. I think that the value of the regional planning commissions promoting it broadly is that they can be in towns that don't have an active energy committee, for example, where if you are an active energy committee, you actually get a really cool opportunity to have some focused information go to your residents. So if there's something in your community that you've heard a lot about when it comes to weatherization, maybe a barrier or a question that comes up quite a bit, or a style of home, we can certainly try to make some tailored information for you, versus a regional planning commission promoting this in their newsletter or at a regional event might not be able to give those specific kind of tailored answers. But it's a good question. And I would certainly connect with your RPC to see kind of what are they up to? What are they doing for Button Up this year? And how can you either be supportive of that work or do something that adds, that they can add value to your work with?
That's the last question in the chat, but if people have other questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand in the bottom. You can click reactions and click raise hand, but we have a small enough group that I think if folks just want to unmute, they can if they have a question.
Hey, it's Bob. I actually did have a question that was off topic and I wasn't going to bring it up because, but I am curious about transportation. And there had been conversation with Efficiency Vermont and their direction with bringing transportation under the guise of Efficiency Vermont. And I was just curious if there's any late breaking news that you could share with us about that.
Ooh, late breaking news.
Or anything. Is there anything going on that, because it's a, it's a big chunk of the pie that the other Becca, one or two, had presented from the EAN slides at the very beginning. So I was looking at that really quickly and realized, transportation makes a big chunk. And so far what we're trying to do is have an impact. Then just curious.
And I actually, so I really appreciate that question because it gives me an opportunity to talk a little bit about why we do the Button Up Vermont campaign and what we're actually hoping to do when it comes to electric vehicles. So if you're not familiar, Act 151 has given Efficiency Vermont specifically a bit of a slice to work on transportation. Previously, we couldn't dip our toes into that world, but now we can. So I, at least from my angle, the community engagement team has been working to promote electric vehicles and be a part of electric vehicle events this year. And we're building up some resources from the Efficiency Vermont side to give to our energy committees and the customer base on electric vehicles. But back to that opportunity, the Button Up campaign the vision is to give you a toolkit to be able to promote something, weatherization, to meet our goals. I think my dream is that one day we have a whatever cute title, EV style Button Up campaign. So that energy committees have some options when you're trying to come up with events or spread the word. You've got something that happens either annually or you can grab and do whenever it fits into your calendar, that gives you some information to share about electric vehicles or how to meet transportation goals more broadly. So if you like what the Button Up Vermont campaign does for weatherization, I really am going to need feedback and insight into what a electric vehicle style campaign like that would look like. So it's a great question, Bob. And I know we've also got, I think Joey is not on this call, but Becca, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to some of the work that VECAN or VNRC has been doing, but you've got some Global Warming Solution Act attendees, participants.
Yeah, not specific transportation like campaign ideas. I think obviously you're right. I mean, it makes up the majority of our emissions, so it's something we're gonna have to focus on. One recent initiative that Thetford did was an energy EV ambassador program, which I think was really interesting, and wondering how that can be, how other committees can maybe do something similar. I don't know too much about it, but I was there at a presentation they did. It seemed really interesting. I'm wondering, how we can, make that more at a regional level, or other energy committees can do something similar. So it's on our mind. A transportation campaign is definitely on the top of our list. So thinking about how we can do that, but nothing specific at this point.
I think the Thetford approach was really a good one. And I think that anytime, when was the last time you talked to anybody who drives an electric car who wouldn't stop everything and take you for a ride or let you drive their car, right? So, and I've ridden around in electric cars at those events and watched the drivers' reaction to it. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, wow, this is really great. It's just such a positive experience. So I think that if what we're trying to do is flip the switch for folks, get them in the car, just figure out whatever scalable system we can come up with. Either carpool with a friend who's got an electric car, or be an Uber driver for a day in your electric car and just drive around and pick people up and take them for a tour, because it totally works. It totally works. So that's my thought on the idea.
That's
simple.
I see that we have a question in the chat, and then we can go to Anne. But whose question did we have? I'm trying to remember where we were.
I saw a question from Fran and then a question from Robert. And Robert, I just put my email and phone number in the chat, so use that, please. And then Fran's question, do you have ideas on how we can reach out to potential clients for the Weatherization Assistance Program? They may not be reading RPC newsletters or Front Porch Forum. Great call out, Fran, because and Anne, you know this just as well with Heat Squad. I mean, how do we get to folks who might not be always accessing the same channels to give them information about income eligible weatherization? I think we can be creative. If you have a local organization that works with vulnerable populations, or you've got a community hub and you're like, if we put something out there, we get some eyeballs on a poster. I'm really happy to think how we can be creative in advertising that and connecting you directly with your weatherization agency who provides those services to see if there are channels that they might recommend. And also I would just highlight, we have some partners who are participating in Button Up this year who have run some very interesting pilot programs, like Vital Communities, for example, to try to get to folks who are income eligible for weatherization services or other energy saving services that I think could be a valuable resource. But yeah, Anne, go ahead.
Thanks, Becca. This is a great program. I just had a comment. Maybe this is for Bob, because I'm aware of some of the, first my role, I'm do outreach for Heat Squad, home energy audits in the Northeast Kingdom. So I'm aware of what many of the energy committees in our region are doing. And they're doing some awesome things. It seems like, a lot of them started with weatherization, and then they've achieved a certain level of traction, and they're moving over to EV, the electric vehicle concepts. I mean, that's probably happening all around the state, but and they're also beginning to work together. For example, Danville, Peacham, and Reigate have set up, it's going to be like an EV, sort of almost like a demonstration afternoon, sponsored by the 3 towns. It's going to be held in Danville. There's going to be EVs there, and they've said it's fine if I want to bring my tub full of Heat Squad weatherization stuff and keep it in my trunk. So I think people are starting where they start from, and they're moving on to broaden the scope. And I'm always looking for ideas for what people in other parts of Vermont that I'm not so familiar with, what they're all doing. That's all. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
I'd like to share a thought with regarding the outreach approach. And one of the things that you can do is work with the contractors that you have in your area. And if they're sophisticated at all digitally, they probably have an email list. And it might be a way that you can use somebody else's audience, sort of like using the Front Porch Forum audience, right? You post on Front Porch Forum, or if you want to use Facebook, you use Facebook's forum. And so offering them a sort of a bundled email that's sort of pre-written for them, so it makes it as easy as possible. Or maybe they just forward an email that you send to them to their email list, and maybe there's even a series of those, like updates about what's going on with the event, or as we get closer to it, this is what's going on. But using them, using their audience to expand your own audience is really inexpensive, other than the effort to really package your message in a one shot or in a series that gives folks that call to action that they want to react to. So just a thought. And it could be plumbing contractors as well. It could be electricians. It could be, they're all interested in providing interesting information to their customers, either new or old customers. And so by making that really easy and simple for them, you could probably talk them into doing it for you.
Great thoughts from Bob the Green Guy.
I think we have a time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions before we wrap up, if anybody has some final questions or thoughts?
Oh, and great thoughts from Gwen. Look at that.
Cool.
So I'll put, if you wouldn't mind, Becca, putting in the chat one more time the sign up link,
Yep.
that would be great. I'd love to get a sense of how many folks are able to participate this year. Oh, there you go. And it's a short form. Hopefully it shouldn't take you more than 3-5 minutes. But since we've got a couple minutes and I'm not seeing other questions, I did just want to take this moment to thank you for joining. And if you've participated in Button Up in the past, thank you for doing that. I hope we can grab you again this year and have you participate. And if you've got logistic questions or you're not sure what the best way is to get the word out in your community, I would love to talk to you. So my phone number is in the chat, my email's in the chat. We've got fabulous partners, and Anne, I see your face still. So Heat Squad NeighborWorks of Western Vermont is one of them. But we've got tons of partners who really do want to help make sure that you can spread the word about weatherization and do it during the month of October for Button Up. So I'm really looking forward to this year, and fingers crossed we'll still be able to do some in-person regional events. But going back to those goals, it's really about safe educational events. So hopefully you'll roll with us again this year as we try to navigate the balance of those things. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, Becca, for this presentation. It was great. And thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm going to follow up in the next day or two with a follow-up email with the recording and the slides and other materials that Becca has shared throughout the presentation. And yes, please feel free to join us at 2 o'clock with Senator Sanders. And yeah, have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.